All right, let's talk about cephalopod. All right, so cephalopod, when you break it down, cephala means head, and then pod means foot. So cephalopoda, or the class of mollusks that we're going to be talking about today, actually means head-footed. So we talked about class bivalvia, meaning two-sided shell. Cephalopoda means head-footed. All right, and it basically is because their head is morphed into their feet, plain and simple. All right, so these are all predators that are specialized for quick, fast, predatory movement. All right, so squid are super fast and intelligent. They have very complex eyes. They have a single large brain. Octopuses have a phenomenal capacity for learning. So octopuses can actually get themselves out of mazes. They can figure out how to unscrew jars and get food out of them. It is absolutely the coolest thing ever. All right, so when we are talking about our cephalopods or cephalopods, we are kind of going back to those general characteristics that all mollusks have. And I mentioned that they have a mantle which secretes the shell. Well, we know when we look at an octopus or a squid that they don't have an external shell. So actually the only mollusk or the only cephalopod that actually has an external shell is this picture on the screen right here. And that is a chambered nautilus. It is the ancestor of the ancient ammonite. So back in Unit 2, we talked about some of our Cretaceous creatures, and the ammonite looked exactly like the chambered nautilus, except for today, the chambered nautilus is about the size of a dinner plate or a little bit smaller. The ammonites could range from about that size to having a 6-foot diameter. So if you're about 6 feet tall, think about, I guess your arm span is, it should be approximately 6 feet if you're 6 feet tall. So that's the width, that's the diameter of something that big with a shell and tentacles swimming around in the oceans. It's crazy to even think about. All right, so these particular mollusks are classified by a reduction or a complete loss of the shell. So when we talk about octopuses, they do not have a shell at all. They have a complete loss of the shell itself. A squid, on the other hand, actually has the evolutionary remnants of an internal shell. And then there's another cephalopod referred to as a cuttlefish that actually has an internal, a light calcareous internal shell that helps it to maintain buoyancy in the oceans. All right, so all of these different mollusks all had the characteristic of having a muscular foot. Well, these particular mollusks actually have a foot that has been modified into both arms and tentacles. And let's real quickly talk about the difference between an arm and a tentacle. So an octopus, think octo, it has 8 arms. Okay, so an arm is characterized by having suckers that go all the way up it. And then a tentacle can actually be retracted back into the body and only has suckers on the end. And when we dissect the squid, I'll show you the difference between its arms and its tentacles. All right, so they have this thick muscular mantle referred to, if you think about cephalopod, it is basically its head, and then its arms and tentacles are its feet, hence, once again, head-footed. All right, so they swim through the water by actually pushing water through their siphon. So very much so like a bivalve. Remember, these are all within the same phylum. They do have a siphon. So on a squid, it's going to be located kind of on the front side of the face. On an octopus, it's going to be located in what we refer to kind of as the octopus's neck region. And that's actually going to bring in water and then push it out almost like a underwater jetpack. So it's kind of jet propulsing itself through the water. All right, so these octopuses, and I will say the actual grammatically correct term is octopuses and not octopi. So fun fact for you there. All right, so octopuses are commonly bottom dwellers. The largest species is actually the Pacific giant octopus, which if you've seen Finding Dory, that's what Hank is. All right, so the Pacific giant octopus can get up to 30 feet long. So think about just how big that is. It's 30 feet worth of octopus. All right, so these particular cephalopods use beak-like jaws in order to bite their prey. And I'll show you a picture in just a second of what that beak looks like. And then when I dissect the squid, I'll try to show you a close-up of that as well. All right, so they use these beak-like jaws to bite the prey, and they can actually secrete ink in order to distract their predators as well. All right, so here's what the beak looks like. Flip an octopus upside down. You can kind of see this little structure right here. And what's super cool is it looks exactly like a bird's beak. So this is the beak of an octopus. So you can see that you do not want to be bit by that. And this is how scientists were actually figuring out that they were there were giant cephalopods in the ocean is because they were finding large sucker marks on stuff, and they were finding huge chunks taken out of fish and then kind of left at the surface. So they figured out that there were things like the colossal squid and the giant squid that were out there. All right, so kind of showing you a little bit more images alongside octopuses. So this is just a secretion of ink in order to avoid predation. And then this is a blue ring octopus. So in my classroom, I had the little stuffed octopus on the front table. That was a blue ring octopus. So super toxic animal. There's actually a video that went viral a while back that showed somebody holding a toxic blue ring octopus in their hand. And it got so much attention on the internet because it was one of those, oh, look, a cute little tiny thing. It can't be hurtful. Well, in reality, super venomous. So you got to watch out for those bad boys. All right, another species that's super, super cool is the mimic octopus. And I'm going to link all of these different videos for you to kind of watch and see as well. So the mimic octopus, and I'm not going to talk too much about it. You've got to see the video in order to really just embrace how cool this animal is. All right, so it can mimic texture, it can mimic behaviors of different animals in order to avoid predation. All right, so let's talk about squids real quick because I'm going to dissect a squid later on this week in the classroom for you to actually see, which hopefully turns out okay since you can't do it hands-on. So squid are excellent swimmers. They have a very streamlined body structure, almost like a little underwater torpedo, and they're characterized by having 8 arms and 2 tentacles. So remember I said that arms are a little bit shorter. They have suckers that go all the way up. So if you look here, I've got some arms here. And then this scientist is actually holding the tentacle so you can see how long the tentacles actually are. And those tentacles do retract back up into the body. And they are used basically for capturing prey. So they'll kind of shoot them out, grab onto something, and pull it back in so that the beak and the mouth can actually get to it. All right, let's look at these giant squid, these colossal squid sucker disc. All right, so this is not a zoomed in image. These sucker discs are actually the size of dinner plates. So imagine swimming in the ocean and all of a sudden you come across a colossal squid and it's got sucker discs that are that big, and notice they have razor sharp edges as well. So they actually will attach, kind of shift, and then lock into place so that the prey cannot get away. What an advanced predator. All right, so I actually have a documentary. If you are interested in the link, I will send that to you. But there is a colossal squid that was brought in, and scientists actually dissect the colossal squid, which is pretty cool. It's a little bit better than the squid that are about a foot long that I have in class. But it is super, super interesting to look at the inside of these organisms. All right, so a few other anatomical terms that you are going to need to know is chromatophores. So when we think about the word chroma, we think color. All right, so chromatophores are these pigment-containing organelles found in the cells of these cephalopods. So this is how organisms like the mimic octopus can change its color. There are other types of squid that will actually change their color as well. The bobtail squid has some bacteria, some bioluminescent bacteria in addition to their chromatophores, so they can actually emit light as well as changing color to blend in with their habitats. All right, and then another anatomical term is the pin. So earlier I mentioned that squid have the evolutionary remnant of a shell, and that's what the pin is. So the pin is basically just this feather shaped, kind of looks like an old school feather quill, and it's an internal structure that runs all the way through the mantle, and it actually gives the mantle a little bit of support rather than just having it be flopped over all the time. So it kind of gives it that straight up appearance. So when you hold a squid, it kind of stands straight up rather than flops right back over. All right, and then I mentioned earlier in regards to shells, the cuttlefish actually has a calcified internal shell that helps it to maintain buoyancy, and the chambered nautilus is the only cephalopod that actually has an external shell.